I was 8 centimeters dilated when the door opened. Not my nurse, not the anesthesiologist I had been waiting on for 40 minutes, not anyone who was supposed to be there. A woman, mid-20s maybe, dark coat, a bag over her shoulder, the slightly rushed look of someone who had been moving quickly and had just arrived where she was trying to be. She pushed the door open, took one step in, and her eyes moved from the bed to the monitoring equipment to the nurse standing to my left to Marcus standing to my right. She stopped. Marcus stopped. 4 seconds of complete stillness. I have been a criminal defense attorney for 9 years. I have sat in rooms where everything changed in a moment, where a piece of evidence landed, or a witness said the wrong thing, or a client's face did something it should not have done in front of a jury. I know what it looks like when a person understands something they cannot take back understanding. I watched Marcus understand it. The woman said, "I'm so sorry, wrong room." Her voice was level. She was backing out already. Marcus said nothing. She closed the door. The room was very quiet for a moment. The monitoring equipment was still running. My contraction, which had been building when the door opened, continued and peaked and passed. I breathed through it. Then Marcus said, "I should check on something. I'll be right back." He left. He was not right back. I delivered our daughter at 11:23 in the morning. The nurses were excellent. My mother, who I had called from the parking lot when Marcus and I arrived and who had not yet made it from Boulder, walked in 40 minutes after the birth. Marcus walked in 2 hours and 11 minutes after the birth. He held our daughter. He said he was sorry he had missed it. He said there had been a situation he had to deal with. He said he would explain everything. I said, "Which room is she in?" He told me. I did not go to that room. I picked up my phone, and I did what I am trained to do in rooms where everything has changed and emotion is not the tool. I built a case. Before I take you back, I need you to understand the timeline of that morning, because the timeline is the whole story. I arrived at Denver Presbyterian at 6:47 a.m. Marcus was with me. We had driven together from our house in Washington Park, my hospital bag in the trunk, the drive that you imagine hundreds of times during 9 months of pregnancy, and that is, when it finally happens, both exactly what you expected and completely surreal. At 8:15 a.m., while I was in early labor, while the nurses were running the initial monitoring, Marcus left the room to make a phone call. He told me he needed to let his office know he would be out. He was gone for 19 minutes. At 9:40 a.m., he left again. "Coffee," he said. He came back with 2 cups. He was gone for 23 minutes. At 11:04 a.m., the door opened. At 11:08 a.m., Marcus said he should check on something and left. At 11:23 a.m., our daughter was born. At 1:34 p.m., Marcus returned. 2 hours and 11 minutes. The room she was in was on the same floor. She had been admitted that morning, not for labor. She had been there with someone else, a friend who was delivering. She had come to visit. She had been given the wrong room number by the front desk. She had not known I was there. Marcus had known she was there since 8:15 a.m. The 19-minute phone call was the one where he told her to come to the hospital to be with her friend and that he would come find her when he could. He was managing 2 situations on the same floor of the same hospital on the morning his daughter was born. That is the timeline. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Serena Mitchell. I am 34 years old. I am a criminal defense attorney at a firm in Denver's downtown. 9 years of practice. Before that, 3 years at the public defender's office, where the cases were harder and the resources were fewer, and the education in how human beings behave under pressure was irreplaceable. My professional life is built on two things: the ability to read what is actually happening in a room rather than what appears to be happening, and the discipline to act on that reading methodically rather than emotionally. I do not say this to sound cold. I say it because those two things are what made the 11 weeks after the delivery room possible. Marcus Webb is 37 years old. He is a software product director at a company in Denver's Reno district. He is charming and creative and has the specific gift of making everyone around him feel like the most interesting person he has talked to all day. I had found this enormously attractive when we met, and I understand it differently now. Not as warmth, but as skill. A skill applied with more audiences than I had known. We met in 2018 at a rooftop party in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. We dated for 2 years. We married in the fall of 2020 in a small ceremony during a year when small ceremonies were the only kind available. 16 people, our back garden, an evening that was right in the ways that mattered. I was happy. I was genuinely happy. The pregnancy was our first. We had been trying for 14 months before the positive test, which made the 14 months of trying and the positive test itself and the 9 months of the pregnancy all carry a quality of investment and intention that made what happened on the morning of the delivery more than just a betrayal of the marriage. It was a betrayal of the entire architecture of what we had been building together. I did not know about Jade before the door opened. I want to be precise about that because I have been asked whether I suspected. I did not suspect. I had noticed in the preceding 4 months a quality of distraction in Marcus that I had attributed to work pressure and to the particular stress of a first pregnancy approaching its end. He had been present enough that the distraction had seemed explainable. He had come to every appointment, he had assembled the crib, he had read the books I had left on his nightstand. He had been managing a relationship with another woman throughout all of it. Her name is Jade. She is 26. She worked at a company in the same building as Marcus's office. Not the same company, a different one. Same building. They had met in the elevator lobby the previous year. They had been seeing each other for 7 months when she walked into my delivery room looking for her friend. She did not know I was pregnant. He had told her the marriage was ending, that he and I were in the process of separation, that we were living together out of practicality while we worked out the details. She had not known there were details that included a baby. I want to tell you about the 11 weeks after the delivery, because they are the substance of what I am most proud of in this story. Not what Marcus did. I have no pride in that. I have only the grief of it. What I am proud of is the 11 weeks. I started from the hospital bed, not dramatically, practically. My daughter was sleeping on my chest. Her name is Ava. She was born at 11:23 a.m., weighing 7 pounds 2 ounces, with her father's eyes and her own particular expression of someone who has arrived somewhere unexpectedly and is taking a moment to orient. I held her with my left arm. I held my phone in my right hand. I called my sister first. She was in Chicago. I told her what had happened. Not all of it, the factual core of it. Marcus had been seeing someone. She had come to the hospital. He had left during the delivery. My sister is a person of enormous practical competence. She said, "What do you need right now, and what do you need in the next 2 weeks?" I told her both. She arrived in Denver the following morning. I called my attorney the same evening. Not my firm, a family law attorney I had referred clients to and whose work I respected. Her name is Diane Roth. She answered at 8 p.m., which tells you something about how well she knows her clients. I gave her the situation. She said, "I'll be at the hospital tomorrow morning. Don't sign anything, and don't have a substantive conversation with Marcus without me present if you can avoid it." Marcus had come back to the hospital room at 1:34 p.m. He had held Ava. He had said he was sorry. He had said he would explain everything. I said very little in response, not because I was being strategic, because I was holding a 7-pound, 2-ounce person who had been in the world for 2 hours and who needed me to be present in a way that precluded the conversation Marcus wanted to have. I told him I was tired. I told him to go home. I told him we would talk when I was out of the hospital. He left. I spent 4 days in the hospital, longer than standard, but Ava had a minor jaundice situation that required monitoring, and I was genuinely grateful for the time. My mother was there. My sister arrived the second morning. Diane came on day 2. My sister held Ava, while Diane and I talked through what the following weeks needed to look like. Week 1, home. I did not confront Marcus. I did not initiate any conversation about what had happened. I was feeding a newborn every 2.5 hours, and I was not going to spend that energy on a conversation I was not yet fully prepared for. My sister was staying in the guest room. Marcus was in the house, but navigating the household with the careful composure of a man who understood he was in a situation that had not yet resolved itself, and that resolving it incorrectly would be worse than not resolving it at all. What I was doing while feeding Ava at 2 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. and 7 a.m., I was reading. I was reading everything I had access to. Bank statements. I had always had access to our joint accounts, and I went through 14 months of them in the hours between feeds. Credit card statements, his work calendar, which was shared with me for scheduling purposes, his phone, which I had access to through our shared family plan backup, not his messages, but the call logs and the data usage. Week 2, Diane's paralegal began the formal discovery process. Marcus was served with the initial notice of the divorce filing on the 9th day after the delivery. 9 days. He had come back to the hospital with tears and apologies. 9 days later, he received a legal document telling him the marriage was over. I was not unkind about it. I was not dramatic. I simply moved at the pace I was capable of moving at, which was faster than he had anticipated. I am a criminal defense attorney. I know how to build a case. Jade called me 3 weeks after the delivery. I want to tell you about that call because it is the part of the story that people expect to be dramatic, and that was, in reality, something else entirely. She found my number through Marcus's phone. She called it when he was at the grocery store. She said, "Serena, I know you don't owe me anything. I know this call is probably the last thing you want, but I need to tell you something, and I needed it to come from me, rather than through whatever process is happening." I said, "Tell me." She said, "I did not know about the baby. I want to be completely clear about that. I did not know you were pregnant. I did not know you were in that hospital. I came to visit my friend and I was given the wrong room and I walked into your room and I am so sorry. I cannot adequately say how sorry I am for that moment and for what I did not know I was part of." I listened to all of it. Then I said, "How long did you know the marriage was supposedly ending?" She said, "From the beginning. He told me from the first week that he was in the process of leaving, that you were separated emotionally, if not physically, that it was a matter of time." I said, "The baby. When did you find out there was a baby?" She said, "When I opened that door, I believed her. I am trained to assess when a person is telling me the truth and when they are managing a narrative. She was telling me the truth." I said, "Thank you for calling. I have nothing I need from you. I hope you're all right." She said, "How is your daughter?" I said, "She's perfect." She said, "I'm glad." And she hung up. That was the only conversation I ever had with Jade. It was 17 minutes long. It told me everything I needed to know about what Marcus had told her and what she had and had not known. It confirmed the framework Diane was already building. What Marcus had told Jade for 7 months, that the marriage was ending, that we were emotionally separated, that it was a matter of time, was the same framework he had used with me about his work stress and his distraction. He had managed both narratives simultaneously. He had been the reassuring present partner to me and the almost available, almost free man to her. And he had maintained both without either of us knowing about the other. That is not just infidelity. That is sustained, deliberate construction. And it required documentation. I am going to keep going in just a moment. But if this story is hitting you the way I hoped it would, we are building this channel on stories like this one at a time. If you have not subscribed yet, I would love for you to be part of it. It takes 2 seconds. And then let me tell you about the hospital bracelet and what I did with the divorce proceedings. In the top drawer of my bedside table, there is a small hospital bracelet. Not Ava's, mine. The one they put on the mother's wrist when she is admitted to labor and delivery. White plastic band, printed with my name and date of birth, and the admission date and the name of the attending physician. Standard issue, the kind that every hospital uses, the kind you take off in the shower when you get home and put somewhere without thinking about it. I kept mine. Not as a monument to suffering, as a record. The bracelet has a date on it. That date is Ava's birthday. The same date that is on her birth certificate, and on the paperwork Diane filed, and on the divorce decree that was finalized 11 weeks after I was admitted to Denver Presbyterian, wearing it. When I was still in the hospital, on the second day, I filled out a form that the hospital provides. The form asks for the names to be listed as parents on the birth record. Standard practice. The hospital needs the information for the official documentation. The form has 2 lines for parent names. I filled out line 1 with my name. I left line 2 blank. Not as a legal maneuver. I spoke to Diane about it first, and she confirmed the implications. Marcus's name not appearing on the initial hospital record was a decision that could be revisited in proceedings and that would, in a divorce filing that was already in motion, produce a specific legal conversation about parental rights and responsibilities that Diane wanted to have in the right sequence. Marcus did not know about the blank second line until Diane's paralegal raised it in the first formal meeting. His attorney called Diane the same afternoon. What Diane said in response to that call is, in its legal precision, one of my favorite sentences anyone has ever said on my behalf. She said, "Your client had 2 hours and 11 minutes on the morning of his daughter's birth to attend to the matter of his name being on her hospital record. Your client made a different choice about how to spend that time." The bracelet is in my bedside table. Every morning, I open the drawer for something else and I see it. Some mornings I close the drawer. Some mornings I pick it up for a moment. It is the document of the morning everything changed and the beginning of the 11 weeks in which I changed it back. 11 weeks from the delivery room to the signed decree. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state. The grounds are irreconcilable differences. The process requires a 90-day waiting period from filing, which meant that the filing Diane submitted 9 days after the delivery and the decree signed 11 weeks after the delivery were technically the fastest legally permissible outcome. We hit the waiting period's end date almost exactly. Marcus retained an attorney named Kevin Cho. Kevin is good. I know his work professionally, and I had referred a client to him the year before. He is thorough and fair, and he moved through the process with the efficiency of someone who understood that his client had a weak factual position and that protraction would not improve it. The financial settlement? Our house in Washington Park, which I had purchased before the marriage with money from my own savings, remained mine. The joint assets were divided according to what each of us had contributed, which Diane documented with the thoroughness that 7 months of bank statement supports. Diane also documented Marcus's 7 months of expenditure related to the relationship with Jade, dinners, hotel stays, gifts, from the joint card that I had access to and that I had reviewed at 2 a.m. between Ava's feeds. Those expenditures informed the settlement and the way that documented expenditures of marital funds on an undisclosed relationship tend to inform settlements. Marcus's name was added to Ava's birth record through the proceedings. She has both parents' names on her certificate. I had never intended for her not to have them. The blank second line was a sequencing decision, not a permanent one. She deserves to know both her parents, and she will know both her parents. And Marcus is someone she will grow up with as her father, and the way that divorced parents work out between them, with children as the priority. The custody arrangement is, on paper, standard. In practice, it is working. Ava is 8 months old. She is the most interesting person I have ever met. Jade. I have not spoken to her since the 17-minute phone call. I have no anger toward her. She was told a story that was not true, and she made decisions based on that story. That is not nothing. Her choices have consequences in her own life that are hers to navigate. But the fraud was Marcus's, not hers. Marcus. The process was what it was. He has been consistent with Ava's schedule. I give him that. Whatever he is outside the co-parenting arrangement is his business. I gave birth to my daughter alone. She is magnificent. That is the whole of what I needed from that morning. First wave, the 9 days. Marcus came back to the hospital room and held Ava and cried and said he would explain everything. 9 days later, he received a divorce filing. He had expected time, the natural buffer that most people assume follows a crisis, the window in which conversations happen and positions shift, and things are perhaps repairable. He did not get that window. He got 9 days. The pace of the filing told him, more clearly than any conversation, that the person he had underestimated was someone who did not require a window to know what she was doing. Second wave, Diane's sentence. Your client had 2 hours and 11 minutes on the morning of his daughter's birth to attend to the matter of his name being on her hospital record. Your client made a different choice about how to spend that time. Kevin Cho told me later, through the specific professional courtesy that exists between attorneys who respect each other's work, that his client had not spoken for approximately 30 seconds after hearing that sentence. 30 seconds is a very long time in a room with 2 lawyers in it. Third wave, the joint card. 7 months of documented expenditure on a relationship he had maintained using money from accounts we shared. Every dinner, every hotel, every gift, logged and submitted and addressed in the settlement. He had funded the deception with our shared money, and the statement records meant I had a complete accounting of what it had cost both of us. The settlement addressed it accordingly. Fourth wave, Jade's call. She called me to tell me the truth. Not because she owed it to me, because she was the kind of person who could not tell me. What she told me confirmed every assumption Diane's team was making and gave me the emotional clarity of knowing I had not been paranoid or insufficient or the wrong kind of wife. I had been lied to by someone who was very good at lying and who had managed 2 narratives simultaneously without either of us knowing. That is not a reflection on me. The call gave me that understanding directly from the person who had been inside the other narrative. Fifth wave, Ava. She is the 5th wave and the only wave that matters long term. She was born on a Tuesday morning in a delivery room in Denver, and her father was in a corridor having a different conversation, and her mother delivered her with nurses and eventually a grandmother from Boulder and a sister from Chicago. She does not know any of this. She will not know it until she is ready to know it, which will be a conversation I have with her when she is old enough to hold it without it defining her. What she knows right now, the face of her mother, the specific warmth of a particular blanket, the sound of a voice that has been talking to her since before she could hear it clearly. She is 8 months old and she is magnificent. She always will be. It has been 8 months since the delivery room door opened. I am back at work. 3 days a week while Ava is with a childminder who I interviewed with the same attention I give to witness preparation. The work is good. I missed it while I was away, and I am glad to be back, and I understand now, in a way I did not before Ava, that the work and the life are both real, and that neither one is the one I do when the other is not available. The Washington Park house? Mine. I have been making small changes since the decree. Not renovations, adjustments. A different arrangement in the living room. A reading chair in the corner I had always wanted a reading chair in, and that I had not put there because it was in the way of the television setup Marcus had installed. The chair is there now. It is exactly right. Diane Roth. I have referred 3 clients to her since the decree, not as payback, as professional respect. She is very good at what she does, and the people I refer to her are people who need exactly what she does. One of them called me last month to say the filing had gone through. I said, she's the best. She is. Ava. She is the first thing I see in the morning and the last thing I think about at night, and every single thing in between. She has her father's eyes, and she has my stubbornness. And she has something that belongs only to her that I have been watching since the morning she arrived and that I cannot yet fully name. I gave birth to her in a room that contained for about 4 seconds a door that was open to something I did not know was true. Then the door closed. Then Marcus left. Then my daughter was born. I made a case from a hospital bed with a 7-pound, 2-ounce person on my chest. It held up. Share this story before you keep scrolling, and drop a comment below. Tell me what moment in this story made you stop. I read everyone. Every story on Karma Delivered is about someone who built something that held up. Build what holds. Stay solid.